The stars looked different this far from Earth. Yuna pressed her hand against the cold window of the ship and stared into the darkness. She had been traveling for 3 months, and now they were finally here. Waypoint 7, the neutral station where humans would meet the Vraks for the first time. "You should get some rest," Daehyun said from behind her. The captain was a careful man, always thinking about safety. He did not like this mission. Yuna could see it in his eyes every time they talked about the Vraks. "I can't sleep," Yuna said. "Tomorrow changes everything." Daehyun walked closer and stood beside her. Through the window, they could see the massive station floating in space. It was bigger than any human structure, built by a species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humans were new to this. They were the newcomers, the young ones trying to find their place. "The Vraks are dangerous," Daehyun said quietly. "Every report says the same thing. They are warriors. They respect only strength. They have conquered dozens of worlds." "Which is why we need this alliance," Yuna replied. She turned to face him. "If we don't make peace with them, we might have to fight them one day, and we would lose." Daehyun nodded slowly. He knew she was right. That was why Earth had sent them here, despite the risks. The Vraks controlled huge areas of space. They were powerful, feared by everyone, but they had agreed to meet with humans. That was something. "Just be careful," Daehyun said. "Don't trust them." The next morning, Yuna put on her formal uniform. It was blue and white, with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked small. Humans were small compared to most alien species. The Vraks were especially large. She had seen pictures. They stood 8 feet tall, had 4 arms, and their skin looked like black armor. They were built for fighting. Yuna took a deep breath. She was not a soldier. She had been a medic before becoming a cultural liaison. She saved lives. She helped people. That was what she was good at. But now, Earth needed her to understand these warrior aliens, to find common ground, to build a bridge between species. Hyunwoo was waiting outside her room. He was the security officer, young and suspicious of everything. He carried a weapon openly, which made Yuna uncomfortable. "Ready?" he asked. "As ready as I can be," Yuna said. They walked through the ship's corridors to the docking area. Daehyun was already there with the rest of the human delegation, 6 people total. That was all Earth had sent. They were testing the waters, seeing if the Vraks would even talk to them. The airlock opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed in from the station. Yuna felt her heart beating faster. This was it. Waypoint 7 was enormous inside. The ceilings were so high that Yuna could barely see them. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. Everything was made of dark metal that reflected light in strange ways. And everywhere there were aliens. Yuna had seen aliens before, but never this many different types in one place. Some were small and moved quickly. Others were huge and slow. Some had too many legs. Others floated without any legs at all. The galaxy was more diverse than anyone on Earth had imagined. But the Vraks were easy to spot. They stood in a group near the center of the main hall. Even among all these aliens, they looked dangerous. Their obsidian scales caught the light. Their 4 arms moved with perfect control. Their eyes were yellow and cold, and they were watching the humans approach. Daehyun led the way. Yuna walked beside him, trying to look calm. Her hands were shaking, so she clasped them behind her back. The largest Vrak stepped forward. He was nearly 9 feet tall, with old scars crossing his chest and arms. This was Threxus, their commander. He looked down at the humans with something that might have been disgust. "So," Threxus said in heavily accented but understandable human language, "Earth sends soft skins to speak with us." Yuna heard Hyunwoo tense beside her. The insult was clear. But Daehyun remained calm. "We come in peace," Daehyun said, using the formal greeting they had practiced. "We hope to build understanding between our peoples." Threxus made a sound like gravel grinding together. It might have been a laugh. "Understanding? What is there to understand? You are weak. Your species has no warriors, no honor. You have only just left your world, and you think you can speak with the Vrax Dominion as equals?" The other Vrax warriors made similar sounds. They were laughing at the humans. Yuna felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. Getting angry would not help. She had studied Vrax culture for months, reading every report, watching every video. She knew that they valued strength above everything. They respected only those who could fight. Humans who preferred peace seemed weak to them. But Yuna had noticed something in the reports, something others had missed. "May I speak?" she asked quietly. Daehyun glanced at her and nodded. Yuna stepped forward. Threxus looked at her with those cold yellow eyes. She was less than half his height. One of his arms was thicker than her whole body, but she did not look away. "You say we have no honor," Yuna said. "But we are here, are we not? We came across the stars to meet you knowing your reputation, knowing that you might reject us, or worse. We came anyway. Is that not a kind of courage?" Threxus stared at her for a long moment. The hall had gone quiet. Even the other aliens had stopped to watch. "Words," Threxus finally said. "Soft skins are good at words. But words mean nothing without strength to back them." "Then let us show you our strength in our own way," Yuna replied. "Not through weapons, but through our actions. Give us time." Threxus made that grinding sound again. "Time? Very well. We will give you 3 days. 3 days to show us why Earth matters, why humans deserve our attention. If you fail..." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The Vrax turned and walked away, their heavy footsteps echoing through the hall. Daehyun let out a breath he had been holding. 3 days? What are we supposed to do in 3 days? Yuna did not answer. She was watching the Vrax disappear into the crowds, but she had seen something. When Threxus had mentioned honor and strength, other Vrax had appeared in the corridor behind him, and with them were small ones, children. The Vrax had brought their young to this neutral station. That meant something. Warriors who brought their children to public places cared about family. They cared about protecting the next generation. That was the key. That was the bridge between species. Yuna just did not know it yet, but in 2 days she would prove it in a way no one could have imagined. For now, the human delegation found their quarters on the station. They were small, but clean. Yuna sat on her bed and recorded her observations in her digital notebook. The Vrax were proud. They were warriors, but they had families. They had children they brought to public spaces. "What are you thinking?" Hyunwoo asked from the doorway. "I'm thinking that maybe we have more in common with them than they realize," Yuna said. Hyunwoo shook his head. "They called us soft skins. They think we're nothing." "They think we're weak," Yuna corrected. "That's different. We just need to show them that there are different kinds of strength." "In 3 days?" Yuna smiled, though she did not feel happy. "In 3 days." She did not know that she would not need 3 days. In less than 48 hours, everything would change. The station would fall into chaos, and Yuna would make a choice that would echo across the galaxy for generations. But that night, she simply recorded her notes, said goodnight to her colleagues, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, they would try again to talk with the Vrax. They would try to build understanding. The universe had other plans. The alarm started on the 2nd day. Yuna was in one of the station's observation rooms, studying the Vrax language on her tablet, when the lights flickered. Then they went out completely. For 3 seconds, there was total darkness. When the emergency lights came on, they were red and dim. Then the alarm began to wail. All personnel, evacuate immediately, a mechanical voice announced in multiple languages. Core breach detected. Station structural failure imminent. This is not a drill. Evacuate immediately. Yuna grabbed her tablet and ran for the door. The corridor outside was already filling with aliens, all moving in different directions. Some were running, others were flying or crawling or sliding. Panic had many forms, but it looked the same in every species. "Yuna!" someone shouted. She turned and saw Hyunwoo pushing through the crowd. "We need to get to the ship. Daehyun is already there." They started running together. The station was shaking now. Yuna could hear metal groaning, the sound of something enormous being torn apart. Whatever was wrong with the core, it was getting worse fast. They turned a corner and found the corridor blocked. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. Debris was everywhere. Sparks shot from broken conduits in the walls. "This way," Hyunwoo said, pulling her toward a side passage. But Yuna had stopped. She heard something, a sound that cut through all the chaos and alarms and screaming. A small voice, crying. "Wait," she said. "We don't have time," Hyunwoo shouted. But Yuna was already moving toward the sound. She climbed over a piece of fallen metal and looked into the damaged corridor beyond. And she saw the child. It was a Varax juvenile. Smaller than the adults, maybe only 5 feet tall, but still larger than Yuna. Its scales were lighter in color, more gray than black, and it was trapped. A heavy beam had fallen across its legs, pinning it to the floor. The young Varax saw her and made a clicking, desperate sound. It was trying to push the beam off, but it could not. It was scared. Yuna could see it in the creature's yellow eyes, the same fear she had seen in human children back when she was a medic. "Yuna, no," Hyunwoo said. He had followed her. "We need to go, now." "There's a child," Yuna said. "That's a Vrax. They're not our problem." "It's a child," Yuna repeated, and she started climbing through the debris. "You'll die. The station is falling apart." Yuna did not answer. She reached the young Vrax and knelt beside it. Up close, she could see that the beam was too heavy. She tried to lift it, but it would not move. The juvenile was clicking rapidly, probably calling for help in its language. I know, Yuna said softly. "I'm trying." She looked around for something to use as a lever. But then she saw something that made her blood turn cold. Above them, damaged conduits were sparking, and one of them was starting to glow orange, then yellow, then white-hot. Superheated plasma. She had read about it in the station safety briefings. When power conduits failed, they sometimes vented plasma at temperatures that could melt metal. The conduit above them was about to rupture, and when it did, the plasma would fall directly onto the trapped child. Yuna looked at the beam again. Too heavy. She looked at the door. Too far. She looked at the conduit. Maybe 10 seconds before it burst. She did not think. She just moved. Yuna threw herself over the young Vrax, covering as much of its body as she could with her own. The juvenile made a surprised sound, confused by what this small alien was doing. "Close your eyes," Yuna whispered, though she knew it could not understand her. The conduit burst. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Yuna felt the plasma hit her back and shoulders like liquid fire. She screamed. Her uniform burned away instantly. The plasma seared through skin and muscle. She could smell her own flesh burning. The pain was so intense that her vision went white, but she did not move. She kept her body over the child, protecting it from the burning rain. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to escape, to save herself. But she had been a medic. She had taken an oath, and this was a child, regardless of what species it belonged to. The plasma kept falling. Seconds felt like hours. Yuna was crying, screaming, but she held her position. Beneath her, the young Vrax had gone still, finally understanding what was happening. This small, soft skin was dying to save it. Then suddenly the weight was gone. Strong hands grabbed Yuna and pulled her away. She saw a blur of black scales and yellow eyes, an adult Vrax. The warrior lifted both Yuna and the juvenile, carrying them out of the collapsing corridor with impossible speed. They emerged into a larger hallway. The Vrax warrior set them down carefully. Yuna collapsed onto her side, her back a mass of burned, ruined flesh. She could barely breathe. The pain was so enormous it filled her entire world. The young Vrax was clicking urgently. The adult Vrax knelt beside them both, and Yuna saw his face clearly for the first time. It was Krell, one of Threxus's warriors, and he was staring at her with an expression she could not read. "Why?" Krell asked in his grinding voice. "Why did you do this?" Yuna tried to speak, but could only manage a whisper. "Child. Just a child." The young Vrax reached out and took Yuna's hand. Its scales were rough against her burned skin, but Yuna held on. She tried to smile to show the child it was safe. Then her vision went dark. She woke up briefly as Krell carried her through the station. Everything was shaking, alarms everywhere. She saw Dae-Hyun's face, shocked and pale. She saw Hyunwoo arguing with someone. She saw other Vrax warriors all staring at her. Then she was on the human ship, and Minji's face appeared above her. Minji was the ship's doctor. She looked terrified. "Stay with me, Yuna," Minji said. "Stay with me." But Yuna could not stay. The pain pulled her down into darkness. She dreamed of fire, of burning, of a small voice crying, of rough scales against her hand, of yellow eyes watching her. When she woke again, the pain was somehow worse. She was in the medical bay, lying on her stomach. She could not move without agony shooting through her entire body. Bandages covered her back and shoulders. The air smelled like antiseptic and burned flesh. "Don't try to move," Minji said. She appeared beside the bed, checking monitors. "You have third-degree burns covering 40% of your body. You were in shock for 6 hours. You almost died, Yuna." "The child," Yuna managed to say. "Is the child safe?" Minji stared at her. "That's your first question? You almost died." "Is the child safe?" Yuna repeated. Minji sighed. "Yes. The Vrax juvenile is fine, not a scratch on it, because you covered it with your body." She shook her head. "You're insane. You know that?" Yuna closed her eyes. The child was safe. That was what mattered. "There's something else," Minji said quietly. "The Vrax. They're outside." "What?" "The entire Vrax delegation. They asked permission to board our ship. They're standing outside the medical bay. They've been there for hours. Dae-Hyun doesn't know what to do." Yuna did not understand. Why would the Vrax be here? They thought humans were weak. They had called them soft skins with contempt. Why would they care about one injured human? "They're just standing there," Minji continued. "Not talking, not moving, just standing. It's creepy." Yuna wanted to ask more questions, but the pain was pulling her down again. Minji gave her something for the pain, and darkness returned. Outside the medical bay, Threxus stood with his warriors. They had not moved in 4 hours. They stood in perfect silence, their 4 arms crossed over their chests in the traditional stance. Behind them, Krell held his child, Sika, who kept looking at the door with worried eyes. Dae-Hyun approached them carefully. "Commander Threxis, you don't need to stay here. We're taking care of her." Threxis looked down at the human captain. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more serious. "This is the vigil of blood debt," Threxis said. "Your Yuna has shown us something we did not believe existed. She showed us courage that shames our warriors. She showed us that soft skin can contain the hardest spirit. We will stand here until we know she lives." Dae-Hyun did not know what to say to that. He simply nodded and walked away. Inside the medical bay, Yuna slept. She did not know that everything had changed. She did not know that her single act of selfless courage had cracked something in the Vrax understanding of the universe. She did not know that her name was already being spoken on the Vrak's homeworld with a tone of respect. She only knew that when she had seen a child in danger, she had not hesitated. That was enough. That was everything. 3 days passed in a haze of pain and medication. Yuna drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she heard voices. Sometimes she felt hands checking her bandages, adjusting monitors, giving her medicine. But mostly, there was just the pain and the darkness. On the 4th day, she finally woke up properly. Minji was there immediately, checking her vital signs with quick, efficient movements. The doctor looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy knot. "Welcome back," Minji said. "You scared us." Yuna tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Minji held a cup of water to her lips. The water was the best thing Yuna had ever tasted. "How bad is it?" Yuna asked. Minji hesitated. "The burns cover your back and shoulders, 3rd degree in most places. We saved your life, but the scars will be permanent. You'll heal, but you'll never look the same." Yuna absorbed this information. She had known, somehow. When the plasma hit her, she had known there would be consequences, but she could not bring herself to regret it. "Can I sit up?" Slowly. Very slowly. With Minji's help, Yuna managed to sit upright. Every movement hurt, but it was bearable. She was alive. She would heal. That was more than enough. "I need to tell you something," Minji said. "The Vraks. They're still here." "Still here?" "They haven't left. Not once. They've been standing outside this room for 4 days. Taking turns, but always at least 6 of them. Day and night. Just standing there." Yuna did not understand. "Why?" "Daehyun talked to Threxis. Apparently it's called the Vigil of Blood Debt. It's one of their highest honors. They stand watch over warriors who have proven themselves in battle. But they've never done it for an outsider before. Never for a non-Vrax. And definitely never for someone they called a soft skin." Before Yuna could respond, the door opened. Daehyun entered, and behind him, moving carefully, came Krell. The huge Vrax warrior had to duck to fit through the door. He stood just inside the medical bay, looking at Yuna with those yellow eyes. "She is awake," Krell said. It was not a question. "I am," Yuna said. Her voice was still weak, but she wanted him to hear her. Krell approached slowly, his forearms held in a peaceful position. When he reached the bed, he did something Yuna did not expect. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his massive frame down to her level. "You saved my child," Krell said. "Saika lives because you gave your flesh to protect her. This is beyond what words can express. In our culture, there is no greater act. You faced death to preserve innocent life. You embodied Krethval, the ultimate courage." Yuna felt tears in her eyes. "She's really okay?" "Not a mark on her. Because of you." Krell reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out something small. He held it out to Yuna. It was a scale, gray like Saika's had been, but polished until it shone. "This is from Saika's first shedding. She wants you to have it. It is a precious gift among our people." Yuna took the scale with trembling fingers. It was warm and smooth. "Thank you," she whispered. Krell stood. "The elders have heard what happened. They wish to meet you. When you are healed, you will be brought to Krethis Prime, our homeworld. This has never happened before. No outsider has been invited to our home, but you are no longer an outsider. You are Krethval." After Krell left, Yuna sat holding the scale. Daehyun pulled up a chair beside her bed. "Everything has changed," he said quietly. "The Vraks want an alliance now, a real one. Not just trade agreements, but a full military and cultural alliance. Because of what you did." "I just helped a child," Yuna said. "You sacrificed yourself for the child of a species that had shown us nothing but contempt. You proved something to them. Something about humans they didn't expect. Dae-hyun smiled. Ambassador Nari is on her way here with a full delegation. The Earth government wants to move fast on this. They're calling you a hero. I'm not a hero, Yuna said. I was just there. Anyone would have done the same. But they wouldn't have, Dae-hyun said. Hyunwoo told me what happened. He told me he wanted to leave. He wanted you to run. You chose to stay. You chose to cover that child with your body, knowing what would happen. That's not something anyone would do. That's something special. Yuna did not know what to say to that. She was tired. The pain was coming back as her medication wore off, but she felt something else too. A sense of purpose. Maybe this had all happened for a reason. Get some rest, Dae-hyun said. You have a long recovery ahead. The days that followed were difficult. Minji worked constantly to manage Yuna's burns, changing bandages, fighting infection, helping her body heal. The pain was intense, especially at night. Yuna often woke from nightmares of burning, of plasma falling like rain. But there were good moments, too. Saika came to visit with Krell. The young Vrax was shy at first, staying close to her father, but when she saw Yuna, something changed in her eyes. She approached the bed and made soft clicking sounds. She asks if you are well, Krell translated. I'm getting better, Yuna said, smiling at Saika. Thank you for the scale. I treasure it. Saika clicked again, more urgently. She reached out with one small hand and gently touched Yuna's arm. The touch was surprisingly gentle for such a powerful species. She says you are her Vel-mother, Krell said, and his voice had an emotion Yuna had not heard before. Shield mother, the one who protected her when her own blood could not reach her in time. It is the highest bond in our culture, second only to birth parent. She will carry your name with hers for the rest of her life. Yuna felt tears rolling down her cheeks. She took Saika's hand and held it. I would be honored, she said. After they left, Minji found Yuna crying. Pain? The doctor asked, reaching for medication. No, Yuna said. Just overwhelmed. 2 weeks after the incident, Yuna could finally stand and walk, though it hurt. Minji warned her not to push too hard. The burns were healing, but the tissue was fragile. Too much movement could damage the new skin, but Yuna needed to move. She needed to feel like herself again. She walked the corridors of the ship, always with someone nearby in case she needed help. And always, there were Vrax warriors nearby. The vigil had ended when she woke up, but the Vrax still watched over her, protecting her. Hyunwoo found her one day in the observation room, looking at the stars. I'm sorry, he said. Yuna turned to him. For what? For telling you to leave. For not helping. I was afraid and I left you there. You were being smart, Yuna said. The station was falling apart. Running was the right choice. But you didn't run. No, I didn't. Yuna looked back at the stars. I couldn't. When I saw Saika trapped, all I could think about was the children I used to treat as a medic. All the scared kids who needed someone to help them. Species doesn't matter in moments like that. Fear is fear. Pain is pain. And a child is a child. Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, The Vrax are different now. Have you noticed? They talk to us like equals. They ask our opinions. Yesterday, Threxus asked me about Earth military tactics. Not to mock us, but because he actually wanted to know. People change when they see things differently, Yuna said. The Vrax thought we were weak. Now they know we're strong in ways they didn't understand. Strength isn't just physical. It's also about sacrifice. About protecting others. They understand that now. Because you showed them. I just did what felt right. Ambassador Nari arrived 3 weeks after the incident. She was an older woman, experienced in diplomacy, but even she seemed overwhelmed by what had happened. She met with Yuna privately in the medical bay. The Earth government wants to give you a medal, Nari said. There's talk of naming a ship after you. You've become famous, Yuna. Everyone knows your name now. I don't want fame, Yuna said. I just want to heal. I understand, but you need to know what your action has accomplished. The Vraks are offering us access to their trade routes, their military technology, their knowledge of this region of space. In exchange, they want cultural exchange programs. They want to learn from us. They want to understand humanity better. Nari leaned forward. You've opened a door that we thought would take decades to open. You've given Earth a powerful ally. I didn't do it for politics, Yuna said. I know. That's what makes it matter. You did it because it was right. And that's the message that's resonating across the galaxy. Humanity helps, even when it costs us, even when it hurts. We help. After Nari left, Yuna lay back on her bed. Her back ached. The scars pulled when she moved. But she felt proud, not of fame or medals or political alliances. She felt proud because she had saved a life, because when it mattered, she had not run. That night she dreamed of Psyche, but this time, it was not a nightmare. In the dream, the young Vrax was safe, playing with other children under a strange sun. And when she looked at Yuna, her yellow eyes were full of joy. Yuna woke with tears on her face, but they were good tears. 6 weeks after the incident, Yuna stood on the bridge of a Vrax warship, watching Krethis Prime grow larger in the viewing screen. The planet was beautiful in a harsh way. Red and orange clouds swirled over continents of dark stone and silver rivers. 3 moons hung in the sky like watching eyes. Are you nervous? Shungmin asked beside her. Yuna's younger brother had arrived with the new human delegation. When he heard what had happened to her, he had volunteered immediately to come. Now he stood with her, looking at the alien world they were about to visit. Terrified, Yuna admitted. She wore formal clothing that covered her scars, but she could still feel them pulling with every movement. The pain was mostly gone now, replaced by a constant tightness. Minji said the scarring would loosen over time, but it would never fully go away. You don't have to do this, Shungmin said. No one would blame you if you stayed on the ship. I need to do this, Yuna said. They invited me. All of this started because I helped one child. I need to see it through. Ambassador Nari joined them at the window. Behind her were Daehyun, Minji, Hyunwoo, and a dozen other humans. Earth had sent its best to witness whatever was about to happen. The Vraks say 10,000 warriors are waiting in the arena of ancients, Nari said quietly. This gathering hasn't happened in 3 generations. They're doing this for you, Yuna. No pressure, Yuna said with a weak smile. The ship landed in a massive port built into the side of a mountain. When the doors opened, hot wind rushed in, carrying the smell of volcanic stone and something else, something sharp and metallic, the air of a warrior world. Threxis was waiting for them with an honor guard of 50 Vrax warriors. They stood in perfect formation, their scales polished until they gleamed. When they saw Yuna, they struck their weapons against the ground 3 times. It echoed like thunder. Welcome to Krethis Prime, Threxis said. His voice was formal, but his eyes were warm. You honor us with your presence, Krethval Yuna. The title made Yuna uncomfortable, but she accepted it with a bow. Thank you for inviting us. They were led through the city. It was built entirely of dark stone and metal, with buildings that stretched high into the red sky. Everywhere, Vrax stopped to watch the humans pass. Word had spread. They knew who Yuna was. They knew what she had done. Some of the Vrax warriors made the 3-strike salute as she passed. Others simply watched in silence. Yuna felt their eyes on her scars, visible on her neck where her collar could not quite hide them. The arena of ancients was enormous. It was carved into living rock. a massive bowl that could hold hundreds of thousands of people. But today, only 10,000 were present, all of them warriors. They stood in perfect ranks, creating a sea of black scales and yellow eyes. Yuna's heart was pounding. She had never seen so many vraks in one place. Each one was a trained killer, a warrior who had proven themselves in combat, and they were all here because of her. "I can't do this," she whispered to Shungmin. "Yes, you can," her brother said firmly. "You faced burning plasma for a child. You can face this." They descended into the arena. The humans walked in a group with Yuna at the center. Threxus led them to the middle of the vast space. The silence was absolute. 10,000 warriors watching, waiting. Threxus raised one hand, and his voice boomed across the arena. He spoke in the Vrax language, harsh and clicking, but translation devices carried his words to the humans. "Warriors of the Vrax Dominion, I stand before you with shame and with pride. Shame, because we have been blind. We believed that strength came only from scales and claws and weapons. We believed that soft skin meant soft spirit. We were wrong." He turned and gestured to Yuna. "This human, this creature we mocked as weak, showed us the truth. When my warrior Krell's child was trapped and dying, when burning death fell from above, this human did not run. She did not seek safety. She covered Saika with her own body. She took the fire meant for the child. She gave her flesh to save a life that was not her species, not her responsibility, not her concern." The arena remained silent, but Yuna could feel something changing in the air. Tension, attention, respect. "This is Krethval," Threxus continued. "The ultimate courage, the willingness to die so others may live. We speak of it in our legends. We teach it to our young. But how long has it been since we truly practiced it? When did we become warriors who fight only for glory and conquest, forgetting that true warriors protect the defenseless?" Krell stepped forward then, leading young Saika. The child had grown in the past weeks, her scales darkening toward adult black. She walked with more confidence now, but when she saw Yuna, she made a small, happy sound and ran forward. Yuna knelt carefully, mindful of her scars, and Saika embraced her. The young Vrax was gentle, learning human fragility. She clicked and hummed, and Krell translated. "She says you are her shield, mother. She says your name is written on her heart. She says she will never forget what you did." Then Saika did something that made the entire arena gasp. She pulled a small blade from her belt and, with careful precision, cut a scale from her own arm. It was a gray scale, not yet hardened to black. She offered it to Yuna with both hands. "This is the Velshera," Threxus said quietly to the humans. "The offering of the soul name. It is reserved for the deepest bonds, parent to child, warrior to mentor." She is giving Yuna part of herself. Yuna took the scale with trembling hands. Tears were streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, Saika." The young Vrax stepped back, standing proudly beside her father. And then something happened that no one expected. From the ranks of warriors, 100 figures stepped forward. They were larger than the others, their scales darker, their weapons more elaborate. They moved as one, with perfect synchronization. "The apex soldiers," Shungmin breathed beside Yuna. "The elite, the most feared warriors in the galaxy." The apex soldiers reached the center of the arena and formed a circle around Yuna and the humans. Their commander, a massive Vrax with scars covering every inch of his body, removed his helmet. His eyes were not yellow like others, but orange, like fire. "I am Vexter," he said, "commander of the Apex. We have conquered worlds. We have defeated armies. We have never bowed to any outsider. We have never shown submission to any species but our own." He paused, and the silence was so complete that Yuna could hear her own heartbeat. "But today we bow to Yuna of Earth, who showed us what true strength means." As one, all 100 Apex soldiers dropped to one knee. Their heads lowered. Their weapons touched the ground. The rest of the arena erupted. 10,000 Virax warriors pounded their weapons against the stone floor, creating a thunderous rhythm. The sound shook the ground beneath Yuna's feet. It filled the sky. It echoed off the mountains. And through it all, the apex soldiers began to speak. One by one, then in groups, then all together. Yuna! 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 They spoke her name like a prayer, like a promise, like a declaration that something fundamental had changed in the universe. Ambassador Nari was crying. So was Minji. Sungmin had his arm around Yuna, holding her up as her knees weakened. Daehyun stood tall, pride written on his face. Hyunwoo looked stunned, unable to process what he was witnessing. And Yuna, scarred and overwhelmed, could only stand and weep as 10,000 warriors honored her sacrifice. The ceremony continued. The elders of the Vrax High Command came forward, ancient warriors who had seen centuries of warfare. They presented Yuna with gifts, a blade forged from fallen meteorite, a cloak woven from the finest materials on Krethis Prime, a crystal that contained the recorded history of the Vrax people. But the greatest gift came last. The eldest of the elders, a Vrax so old his scales had faded to pale gray, approached Yuna. He carried a document sealed with the mark of the Dominion. "This is the Treaty of Krethval," he said in a voice like grinding stone. "It names humanity as brothers in arms of the Vrax Dominion, not subjects, not clients, brothers, equal partners in the defense of life and the pursuit of honor. This treaty exists because one human showed us the meaning of sacrifice." He placed the document in Yuna's hands. The galaxy will remember this day. The day the Vrax learned humility from a soft skin. The day we learned that strength comes in many forms. The arena erupted again in that thunderous pounding. The noise was overwhelming, but Yuna felt no fear. She felt only gratitude and a strange sense of rightness. She had done what anyone should do. She had protected a child, and somehow, that simple act had changed the course of history. As the ceremony ended and the humans were led to quarters in the warrior's keep, Threxus walked beside Yuna. "You have given us a gift," he said quietly. "You have reminded us why we became warriors in the first place, not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect, to serve, to sacrifice for others. We had forgotten. You helped us remember." That night, Yuna stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The 3 moons were bright in the sky. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear Vrax warriors singing their battle songs. But they sounded different now. Less aggressive, more contemplative. Sungmin joined her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I don't deserve this," Yuna admitted. "I just did what was right." "That's exactly why you deserve it," her brother said. "You didn't do it for glory or recognition. You did it because a child needed help. And that's what makes it matter." 5 years had passed since that day in the arena. Yuna stood at the window of her office on Earth, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. The Interspecies Cultural Institute had grown from a small department into a massive organization with branches on 12 worlds, and she led it all. Her scars still pulled when she moved too quickly. She still had nightmares sometimes of burning plasma falling like rain, but she had learned to live with these things. They were part of her now, part of her story. A knock on the door made her turn. Minji entered, no longer just a ship's doctor, but the Institute's chief medical advisor. "She's here," Minji said with a smile. Yuna's heart jumped. "Already?" "Her ship landed an hour ago. She wanted to surprise you." Yuna hurried through the corridors of the Institute. Students and staff stepped aside as she passed, many of them calling greetings. Some were human. Others were Vrax. A few were from species that had joined the Alliance in the years since the treaty was signed. The Institute had become a bridge between worlds. She found Saika in the main courtyard, standing among human students who barely reached her shoulders. The young Vrax had grown tall and strong, her scales now fully black like an adult warrior's. But her eyes still held that same warmth they had shown when she was a trapped, frightened child. "Velmother!" Saika called out, using the Vrax term that had become her name for Yuna. They embraced carefully. Yuna was still small compared to the Vrax, still fragile in ways they were not. But Saika had learned to be gentle. She held Yuna like something precious. "You've grown so much," Yuna said, stepping back to look at her. "You're almost a full warrior now." "Next month I complete my trials," Saika said proudly, "and then I will be assigned to a ship. I hope to serve on a joint patrol vessel working with humans." "That would be wonderful." They walked through the Institute together, Saika fascinated by everything. She had visited Earth before, but never for long. This time she would stay for a month, learning about human culture and teaching Vrax combat techniques to the Institute's security students. "It's so different here," Saika said. "So soft, so green." "How do you train warriors in such a gentle place?" "We don't train warriors the way you do," Yuna explained. "We train diplomats, teachers, healers, people who build bridges instead of fighting battles." "But you have soldiers too," Saika pointed out. "Yes, but they're not our primary strength. Our strength comes from understanding, from cooperation, from caring about others." Saika clicked thoughtfully. "Father says that is what you taught us, that there are many kinds of strength." They sat in the courtyard garden, surrounded by flowers and small trees. It was a place Yuna came to think, to remember why she did this work. "Do you remember that day?" Yuna asked quietly. "On the station?" "Every day," Saika said. "I was so afraid. The metal was crushing my legs. I could not move. I could not escape. And then I saw you. This small creature climbing through the debris. I did not understand what you were doing, why you would come toward danger." And then the plasma started falling. "Yes," Saika's voice became softer. "I saw the conduit glowing. I knew what was coming. I thought I would die, but you covered me. You took the fire. I felt your body shaking with pain, but you did not move. You stayed over me, protecting me." Tears were running down Saika's scaled face, glinting in the fading sunlight. "I understood then that you were dying for me. A stranger. A child of a species that had treated yours with contempt. You were dying for me anyway. That moment changed everything I believed about the universe." Yuna reached out and took Saika's hand. The scales were rough, but familiar now. "You would have done the same for a human child." "I would now," Saika agreed. "But before that day, I do not know. We were taught that only Vrax mattered, that other species were lesser. You showed me that was wrong. You showed me that compassion crosses all boundaries." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Then Saika's communication device chirped. She checked it and smiled. "Father wants to meet us for dinner. He is in orbit with his command ship." "Krell is here too?" "The whole battle group, 6 ships. They are assigned to patrol this sector now, protecting Earth and its colonies." Yuna felt a warmth in her chest. The idea that Vrax warships now protected human worlds would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. But it was real. It had happened. Because of one moment of courage. They took a shuttle to Krell's command ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. But inside, it felt welcoming. The Vrax crew greeted Yuna with the 3-strike salute, speaking her name with respect. She had become something of a legend among the Vrax, the human who earned the honor of apex soldiers. Krell met them in his quarters, which were surprisingly comfortable. He had decorated the space with objects from many worlds, including a picture of Yuna holding young Saika, taken just days after the incident. "Yuna," he said warmly, embracing her carefully. You look well. The scars fade? A little, Una said, but they'll always be there. Good, Krell said firmly. They are marks of honor. They tell a story that should never be forgotten. Over dinner, they talked about the changes in the galaxy. The Human-Vrax alliance had brought stability to previously contested regions. Other species had joined, seeing the benefit of cooperation over conflict. Trade routes were safer. Scientific knowledge was being shared. A golden age seemed possible. But there are still challenges, Krell said seriously. Not everyone welcomes this change. There are groups who see the alliance as a threat. They prefer the old ways, where might made right. What kind of groups? Una asked. Raiders, pirates, some military factions from isolated worlds. They test our borders, trying to find weaknesses. Have there been attacks? Small ones. Nothing we cannot handle, but there was an incident 3 days ago. Krell's expression darkened. A human colony called New Hope was threatened. Raiders surrounded the planet demanding resources. The colonists sent a distress call. What happened? 6 Vrax warships arrived before any human forces could respond. The raiders saw our ships and fled without firing a shot. Krell smiled. But before we left, I sent a message to the raiders. I told them that New Hope was under the protection of Una's people. I told them that attacking humans means attacking the Vrax dominion. I told them we would show no mercy. Una felt tears in her eyes. You protected them because of me? We protect them because they are our brothers, Krell corrected. But yes, your name carries weight. The story of what you did has spread across the galaxy. Even criminals and raiders know about the human who sacrificed herself for a Vrax child. It makes them think twice before threatening your people. Later, Saika showed Una around the ship. They visited the training rooms where young Vrax warriors practiced combat. They visited the medical bay, equipped now with facilities for treating both Vrax and human injuries. They visited the common areas where warriors of both species ate together, shared stories, built friendships. This is your legacy, Saika said. You built this bridge. You showed us that we could be more than conquerors. We could be protectors. I didn't build anything, Una protested. I just helped one person. That is how all great changes begin, Saika said wisely. One person, one choice, one moment of courage. The next morning, Una returned to the institute to teach her class. It was a mixed group of students, humans and Vrax and others, all learning about cultural diplomacy. She stood before them, her scars visible on her neck, and spoke about the importance of understanding. We all have different backgrounds, she said, different cultures, different ways of seeing the world, but underneath all that, we share the same fundamental needs: safety, family, purpose. When we remember that, when we see the person instead of just the alien, we build bridges instead of walls. One of the human students raised a hand. Professor Una, is it true that you didn't think about the consequences? That you just acted? Yes, Una admitted. I saw a child in danger. I didn't think about species or politics or consequences. I just knew I had to help. A Vrax student clicked thoughtfully. My father told me that is what defines true warriors. They act without hesitation to protect others. They do not calculate risks. They simply do what must be done. Your father is wise, Una said, but I would add that we are all capable of that kind of courage. It doesn't take training or weapons or physical strength. It just takes compassion and the willingness to act on it. After class, Hyunwoo found her in her office. He was older now, with gray in his hair, but he still carried himself like a soldier. He had become the head of security for the Institute. I have news from Earth Command, he said. They want to name the new diplomatic vessel after you. The YCS Una. It will be the first ship designed specifically for joint human Vrax operations. Yuna felt overwhelmed. That's too much. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. It's exactly right. That ship will carry your name across the galaxy. It will remind everyone of what you did, of what humans stand for. I just wanted to help, Yuna whispered. I know. That's why it matters. That evening, Yuna returned to her apartment and found a package waiting. It was from Threxus, the Vrax commander who had first called humans soft skins. Inside was a book, handwritten in both Vrax and human languages. The title was The Human Who Covered the Cub, A History of the Krethval Treaty. Yuna opened it and began to read. It told the story of that day on Waypoint 7, but it also told the broader story of how two species learned to trust each other, how one act of sacrifice had rippled out across the galaxy, changing policies and cultures and hearts. The final chapter was titled Legacy. It read, In Vrax culture, we now teach our young about Yuna of Earth. We tell them how she covered Sika with her own body, how she took the burning fire meant for a child not of her species. We tell them that this is the meaning of Krethval, not fighting for glory, not dying in battle, but sacrificing yourself so others may live. The phrase Yuna's shield has entered our language. It means to protect the innocent at all costs. It means to put others before yourself. It means to be strong not through weapons, but through compassion. When Apex soldiers speak of the greatest warriors, they speak her name. When we teach honor to our children, we tell her story. When we remember why we became warriors in the first place, we think of that moment when a small human threw herself over a Vrax child and took the fire. This is Yuna's legacy, not conquest, not victory in battle, but the simple, profound courage of caring for others. She taught us that true strength is measured not by who you can defeat, but by who you are willing to save. We bow when we speak her name. We will always bow. Yuna closed the book and sat in the darkness of her apartment, tears streaming down her face. She thought about Sika, now strong and proud. She thought about Krell and his warships, protecting human colonies. She thought about the Institute and its students learning to build bridges between species. She thought about the treaty and the alliance and all the lives saved because two species had learned to trust each other. And she thought about that moment on the station when she had seen a frightened child and made a choice. It had seemed so simple then. See someone in danger, help them. Don't think about the cost. But that simple choice had changed everything. She touched her scarred shoulder, feeling the ridges of burned tissue beneath her shirt. These scars had bought peace. They had earned friendship. They had taught the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or military might, but compassion. Her communication device chirped. It was a message from Sika. Good night, Velmother. I am proud to carry your name with mine. I will make you proud. Yuna smiled and sent back, You already do. Every single day. She turned off the lights and looked out at the city below, at the lights of human and alien buildings mixing together. Somewhere up there, Vrax warriors stood watch over Earth. Somewhere out there, human and Vrax children played together on colony worlds. Somewhere in the galaxy, people told the story of the human who covered the cub with her own body, and tomorrow she would wake up and continue the work, teaching, building bridges, helping people understand each other, because that was what humans did best. They cared, even when it hurt, even when it cost them everything, and sometimes that was enough to change the universe.